It works a lot better to me when I actually have faces introduced, because like I'll be like, and here we have Elise, and like you come up on stage and like, oh, that's not Elise. I do not think you're a small Chinese woman. I could be wrong, Zach, but I do not think you're a small Chinese woman.
I don't know. You never know.
I only just met you this weekend, so you know we had that time to build up that.
Don't judge me off my cover.
It's very true. It's very true. All right, so how are you guys all feeling this morning? Good, excellent. How's your con been so far for this? Are you enjoying Con-nichwa?
Yes, for sure.
And I have a great announcement. I just want to let everyone know who came out for the auction. We raised $1,220 yesterday. So give yourself a hand. Thank you so much.
All right. So that was actually going to be my first question for you guys. Like, is there any? I'd have to say that was one of the highlights. I'm like, is there anything super memorable about the con for you so far?
Oh, super memorable. I think the people. I'm a people person, and I love connecting. And I think, you know, I've just met so many great people over the weekend, and got to spend some nice quality time with you guys in the workshops. And so, thank you so much. I feel very welcome. It's my first time here at Con-nichwa.
Well, we hope to have you back. Yeah. Anybody else have any other memorable moments they want to share?
The energy in the crowd at the concert on Friday night was electric. I was really pleased with how involved people were, and how willing they were to come up in front and interact, and occasionally sing instead of me. I was like passing the mic around. It was a good time. It was a very, very great welcome to Con-nichwa.
I'm from China. I'm from Shanghai, so my English is not so good. So those Q&A panels are kind of tough for me. But all the audience are so warm, so kind. They made it kind of easy for me. So thanks, everyone.
Hey. Hi. Y'all are awesome. Thank you guys so much for showing up and coming to our rock sessions and stuff. Hey, thanks. I like the fox on your shoulder. God, memorable. Okay, so I went to the guest dinner. It was really nice to interact with everybody. I ordered a Caesar salad before reading the news the next day that the warning for romaine lettuce had been expanded. And so I freaked out, unreasonably so. I'm fine, I'm here. You're welcome.
Welcome to Tucson.
So that was memorable. Also, fun fact, y'all, my childhood best friend is in the audience right now. She's right there. Oh. So that was awesome. You guys hang out with her and her family last night. So.
That is awesome. I am so happy to hear that. And I'm glad that Con-nichwa is treating you guys pretty good. All right, so we'll go ahead and start off with something a little more interesting, a little bit off, a little bit off the beaten path, I want to say. Can you, in fact, go ahead and let the audience know something about you that probably they wouldn't know just from looking it up? Because I've looked up a couple of your bios, and there's a lot of stuff out there, but is there something that you'd like to share with the audience that probably isn't out there?
No.
This is a bad question.
I was deployed on some CIA undercover missions in Cuba in the 70s. I think I'm allowed to talk about that now.
I don't think you're allowed to talk about that because I'm pretty sure
I don't think you were alive.
I've been declassified in about 50 years.
You look good for 50.
He's an alien.
Oh no, that's true.
Oh, okay.
If you couldn't tell, I'm a history nerd. I have an absolute obsession with particularly a lot of military history, and with like a specialty in 20th century history. That's my jam. One of my best friends is getting his doctorate in history, and me and him will literally just hang out for hours on end and discuss things like that, and different interesting oddities from history. And he knows way more than I do, so I pick his brain about certain topics and get his opinion and his professor's opinions, and that's one of my things I'm learning about to pass the time.
Let's see, so many things that probably people don't know. So many years of things. I think some of the highlights in the late 80s, early 90s, I was in one of the first Orlando Magic dancers hired for the basketball team, and I sang the national anthem for the Chicago Bulls game. And I got to meet Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson. They were all playing Larry Bird at that time, like super close up. So
How tall were you at the time?
I was the same height. They were 6 foot and up. I mean, the tallest basketball player I ever met was Manute Bol, and he's like from Africa, and he's like 6'9" or something, or yeah, some crazy height. Yeah. And a couple other little tidbits. I used to, when I worked for Disney World in Florida, flew as Tinkerbell. So I'm friends with Tinkerbell. And that was in the early days of Tinkerbell flying, and that was amazing. And I was on The Muppet Show one time. Had a little bit, you can see it on YouTube. So.
Okay. I almost became a scientist on chemistry, just as my character. My character is a scientist on climate. I majored in chemical technology in college and got my postgraduate degree before I became a voice actor.
Alright.
Things you don't know that I want you to know. That's where it gets weird. Fun fact. I am fascinated with paranormal folklore, and I'm putting together a YouTube channel with a friend of mine next weekend. We're shooting our first episode, so look for that.
Oh my god, totally keep me in the loop for that. I love paranormal stuff too. I think it's fantastic.
I was like marathoning Ghost Hunters last night. So super fake, but I love it.
I know, I love exactly how much you're just like, oh, this is really cool, but you guys are really pushing it hard.
There was the scene I was watching last night. There was like a weird like creaking noise, and all of a sudden all three guys were like, trouble, trouble, shh. And there's like all this dramatic music. I'm like, you guys are making something out of nothing.
Have you guys seen Ghosts and Stuff? Amanda Miller, she's Sailor Jupiter on the Sailor Moon series and a lot of other anime. She created her own series called Ghosts and Stuff.
Ghosts and Stuff?
Ghosts and
There
Stuff.
goes my name.
Ghosts and Stuff Inc. I think it's called. But you have to check it out. It's on YouTube. She has a series, and it was up for a Webby Award. And I did like a cameo in one of the episodes. But there's a lot of anime voice actors in it, and it's really cool. She's a great writer, so you have to check it out.
Yeah, no, we'll totally check that. Ghosts and like.
I think it's Ghost and Stuff Inc.
Ghosts and Stuff Inc.
Yeah, or just look up Amanda Miller, and you'll find. Yeah, we'll have to look it up.
All right. Well, certainly very interesting things, obviously. Ghosts. Yeah, ghosts. I mean, there's. How do they work? Just like magnets. How do they work?
There's a connection.
It is.
Yeah.
So unscience. All right. Another interesting thing that I actually thought of, which was kind of a little bit off the beaten path, would be, well, actually, you might have been asked this, I don't know. But as voice actors, being that this is in fact what you do, obviously, subs or dubs?
Ooh. Trying to start a fight. I'm generally a subs person. For anything live action, always subs. For anime specifically, it depends on the quality of the dub and if I have friends in the dub or not. Because if I do, then I have to watch the dub. But there obviously are some dubs out there that have been done very poorly, and the key is to like look before you watch and make sure that you know what you're getting into.
No one can really beat ghost stories if you've ever heard that.
I have not.
Oh my god.
I feel like I need to.
As part of your career, I feel like you owe it to yourself too, because I think if everyone knows about the English dub version of ghost stories, it is literally 100% ad-libbed.
My favorite is the like online YouTube fan dubs, where it's Naruto, but it's like 50 million% more emo, and they're swearing a lot. Like when there's like a fight scene, instead of just playing the scene, they're like, Sasuke, I hate you. And it's like, what is the point of this? But somebody felt the need to redub Naruto with a lot of words.
I feel like you would go through a lot of abridged series.
What?
Abridged series? Have you ever seen those?
Yu-Gi-Oh! The abridged series is the reason I do character voiceover. Little Karibo and I had a powwow. He's a big Steven fan, and I'm a big Yu-Gi-Oh! The abridged series fan, and that was formative for me.
I have to agree with Zach. As far as live action, I like subs. But definitely, I don't know, I'm a fan of dubs. I know all the actors for so many years, and I think there's some great dubbing going on in the past 15 years.
I agree. If there are real people on the screen, I like subs. But animations, and it also depends on the quality of the translation. You know, if the dialogues are so related to some cultures that's so hard to translate, I think maybe subs.
Oh yeah, same.
Yes. All right. In voice acting, is there a certain type of voice method you guys like doing? Because I know there's different types. Like there's walla, looping. Video games are different as well. Is there a certain type that you are really fond of, and there's other types that you're just like, oh my god, not again?
Yeah, I mean, I much prefer animation, whether scripted or improv, just like working in television or feature animation, because I did a promo gig for a long time where you're doing stuff for a network coming up next at 7 o'clock, and that's all it is, and it's you have to have the same inflection on every line, and it's very technical, and that can get very frustrating after a while. With dubbing stuff, working in any kind of animation is really fun. And then Walla for, who knows what looping is for movies? If you've ever seen a movie, there's a restaurant scene or something, and there's all that hubbub for people in the background. That's not a regular track that they just copy and paste. They actually have voice actors come in the studio and improvise fake conversations on top of the scene and make what they call beds. And it's really fun, really rewarding work. You'll have an 8-hour session. You can do an entire movie in that time with a group of 12 people, and you're basically having all these improvised conversations that no one will ever hear the details of. And you can get a little goofy with it sometimes. It's a really different take on voiceover work. It's way more improv focused, and I really dig that.
That gave me a really good question later, but
okay,
we'll get back to that.
I'll be waiting.
I would have to say for sure animation. I love mainstream animation or Western animation, because they're creating the animation to us. There is a little freedom for improv and really bringing more to the character than you have in that space of anime. But I do love anime. I love all animation. And looping as well. I had so much fun working. I worked on King of the Hill for 7 years, and
you were in that loop group.
In that loop group,
so
and The
fun.
Simpsons, and Futurama for a couple years. But I love primetime animation loop group, and I love doing the movies, like the Disney movies and things. So yeah.
Unlike you guys, I don't like looping. I'm not a creative girl, so when I don't understand what are they doing, it's kind of what I always do is, oh really? Oh wow! I don't know what to say.
That's totally my default too. When you're in those wall groups where everyone else is having these creative conversations, and I'm the one that's
Yeah.
It's also tough because looping, there's a lot of restrictions. You can't say "oh my god," "oh my gosh," because that'll freak the network out.
You talk about time or date,
because if it's not the time and date relevant to what's going on in the scene, then if that gets heard, then somebody's gonna have to go in and edit that out.
or when it airs. Yeah.
Exactly. And then obviously you can't swear. There's a lot of technical stuff you have to put your head towards the mic, except sometimes when you're close, the engineer wants you to turn it away because that would be too hot, and you have to be conscious of all these things. And often you're moving. It's a big, giant studio room, and you're all walking around in a weird pattern. to make it seem like the conversation is flowing and moving. And technically, it's very challenging, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, that interesting question that sparked from you was: is there ever been a like background vocal ambiance line that snuck through that you're kind of like, hee hee?
I wouldn't know if they snuck through, because if you go back and listen, you'll never in a million years hear it. They live in your memories.
Yeah.
Is there ever a time where, well, on that, like, I assume that might be true for all of you, but is there like a line that you said that's just like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm saying this?
You guys know the show A Series of Unfortunate Events on Netflix? I did the loop group for season 2, and there's a scene, if you've seen it, where they're going to all these trendy restaurants, and like every time they find out a different restaurant is trendier, everybody like leaves and like beelines for the other one, and they go to this one restaurant called Salmonella. It's salmonella, and it only serves salmon. And I didn't catch that in the notes on our first take, that the restaurant only serves salmon. So I'm talking to somebody, I was like, oh yeah, the beef Wellington looks interesting. And the director who's acting with, he's like, no, they only serve salmon. It's like, oh, you gotta be joking. No, they only serve salmon. Like, stay with the scene. I'm like, wait a second, what? You didn't realize that he was out of character, like trying to tell me, like, no, it's only salmon, don't talk about other food. So the conversation ended up lasting 30 seconds, and we started laughing in the middle of it, but that kind of stuff still sounds like conversation, so you can just put it right in there underneath.
I've seen that scene, and I was like, really? Only? And then they like brought out the salmon shots, and I was like,
oh, so nasty.
Nope, done.
The herring one was even worse.
So I was directing a long time ago this show called Sasami the Magical Girl Club, and there's a scene in there where one of the girls pulls out a talking radish, and she pulls it out and she takes a bite and she says, oh, that's pretty good. And so the actor who was playing the talking radish was Chris Callison, and he improvised, your mom's pretty good.
Oh my gosh.
Got him.
It was supposed to just be kind of a joke line, and for some reason they didn't take it out, so it's in there still.
Oh my gosh.
I need to go rewatch that. Oh my god. I never realized.
I don't really recall anything from, that was left in or that we were joking about, but it's kind of like you said yesterday, you kind of do the session, then you do the next one, and but you can pretty much talk, about anything in the conversation, just related to the scene, and you have just those parameters to work in. So some pretty creative stuff does come out.
There's so many jokes in the booth.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't tell. I don't remember.
That's fine. All right, let's see. Okay, so this one's a pretty easy one. I feel like you might get it asked a lot of times, but it's always interesting, I feel. Is there a character that you know of out there, or can think of, that you would absolutely love to do? And is there one that you would absolutely, just not want to do? Like, you don't think it would work, or something like that?
It's weird to pick existing characters, because I feel like in most cases I wouldn't be able to do justice over the original voice actor, but in a different Slate universe where they were never that person. Commander Shepard from Mass Effect. I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite convention on the Citadel.
I think for me, I think I've said it over the past couple of days. I'd love to retire doing Minnie Mouse if Lucy ever leaves the job. Oh, Mickey, I love you. Bye-bye.
Okay, my English character is just Maid in Overwatch, so I'll tell you something in the Chinese versions, maybe. I have been working on Powerpuff Girls, the Chinese version, these days. Almost everybody think I might be Bubbles, because I'm a happy girl in my real life, but they picked me to be Buttercup. That's a hard work for me. I don't know the English voice actor who's that, but the way she talks is really funny. Oh, bubble, like that. I like that.
So my original answer was I wanted to be the next Belle, but then Hermione already did it, so I had to change it. I think I would like to try Anastasia. I think she'd be fun. It's one of my favorite princesses. She's not Disney though. She's something else, right? What is she? I don't know. She's like a fox or something.
Yeah, she's actually not a Disney princess or anything.
Yeah.
She just happens to be a fantastic animated princess.
Yeah.
It's like one of those sleeper films that people are like, oh, that was a great Disney movie. It's like, no.
Disney bought Fox, right? So
I believe so,
now
but at the time of, I think it was,
she is?
technically she is now.
she's adopted.
Pretty much,
She's an
Adopted child.
everything is a Disney property now.
Yeah, no, if you realistically think about it, everything at some level, like Disney has a hand, so yeah.
Yeah.
Just by virtue of working in Los Angeles, I myself, as a human being, am a Disney property.
Probably. You do sign those contracts.
I signed something at some point that sold my life away.
I know two of you are very influenced and affiliated with Disney. Yes.
Yeah.
And then,
I worked for Disney for 3 years on Disney Junior for Sophia the First.
yeah, that's right. You were Prince James, right? Yes. If you guys have kids, maybe you might have seen Sophia the First. If you don't have kids, you still might have if you were really bored on Netflix. All right, so this is one thing that I will go ahead and ask and then we'll start getting towards guest questions. But so we all know that you guys have given things to the fans that they can take home and cherish with them. They can listen to you guys at home and feel joy out of that. But has there been something that fans have done for you or given you that has left a little treasure card in your heart?
Someone knitted me a Natsu scarf. Oh, that was really sweet. From Fairy Tale.
I love fan gifts. I mean, I think I love cosplay. I love seeing all the creativity that the fans put into their cosplay. But I also get these beautiful pieces of artwork. And I have to say, this con especially, I think I've gotten 4 or 5 beautiful pieces of artwork of my characters. And I do have a little book at home that I keep them in, and sometimes if I have time, I'll put them on my social media. But I really, because I know it takes a lot of time, and I really appreciate that.
I've got a whole set of the sweater, the pants, the slipper of my character already. And in this con, in Con-nichwa, I got the blaster, like a gun. Yeah. It was 3D printed, really nicely made. I love it. Now I got a whole set. I didn't do cosplay.
So yeah, you need to come to your cons dressed up then.
Yeah, baby.
I'm going to condense this story into the short version. There's a prelude. So when I was 5, my buddy was having a birthday party. We were all eating lunch and then going to see Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed. I loved the first one. Great flick. We're walking to the theater after lunch, and my dad pulls me aside, puts his hand on my shoulder, and is like, Zach, you can't see this movie, buddy. We're gonna go home now. I was like, well, but Dad, all my friends are coming to see it. I saw the first movie. He's like, no, this is inappropriate for kids your age. We're gonna leave. And I screamed and cried and kicked and all that, and I was so upset at this injustice because it was rated PG. He had heard something incorrect at some point, thought it was a different movie. And I held a grudge with my dad about this for almost 10 years, so I'm not 10 years, so I was about 12. I was very petty about it. And I told that story in a couple interviews at some point earlier in my career, and I'm at SAC Anime in Sacramento about 2 years ago, and I'm on a panel, and this girl comes up in a Steven Universe cosplay, asks a question, and is about to leave. She says, by the way, I heard the story about you getting cheated out of seeing Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed when you were 5, so here's the DVD. So that is the most thoughtful gift I've ever received.
That is awesome. That is so awesome. Yeah. Well, obviously, let's hope to see if you guys can, keep spreading the love here. So, audience, help me out here. You guys got any questions that you want to ask our guests? Anything? Go ahead.
Is there like a celebrity or voice actor that you really look up to?
I think there's a lot of them. When you're in the room with Frank Welker, he's amazing. There's some amazing women voice actors, Tara Strong and Gray Delisle, that I admire for their versatility. E.G. Daily, but they're so versatile at voice matching and doing just so many different voices. But I'm just so grateful to be in this industry because I do admire my peers, and I learn something every time I walk into the studio. I learn something new, and just grateful to be a part of it.
In voiceover, at my very first voiceover session when I was 11 years old for a radio show called Adventures in Odyssey, Jess Harnell was there, who is of Animaniacs fame and many, many, many other cartoons. And he just took a liking to me and my parents that day. He was doing this crazy character, and I was just so enchanted watching him work. And we just crossed paths so many times. He was on Sophia the First. He was Cedric the Wizard. And then we did Mr. Peabody and Sherman together. He played a bunch of the presidents. I played King Tut. And then we started doing conventions together. And all through the while, he's very much been a mentor, giving me advice on everything from voiceover to music to financial stuff and career planning. And he calls himself my unofficial uncle. And, I think I'm seeing him next weekend actually at another convention. So for voiceover, Jess is my man. For just everything else, an actor I really look up to is Billy Bob Thornton. He's actually a massive Steven Universe fan. Him and his daughter, they've seen every episode. And we met at a convention because of this. And me and Dee Dee and Michaela ended up really hitting off with them, and they had us over for dinner a couple times, the whole cast, and just got to talk to him about his life story and his career path, and the advice he had for me as a young actor wanting to have a lengthy career like him, and that was super important for me to hear. I feel like, especially because it's coming from someone that you have the mutual peer respect with. He likes what I do, and I love what he does, and that makes it even more rewarding, I feel like.
I got trained by Colleen Kinkenbeard, so I have a lot of respect for her voice acting and skill and talent and range. So I would say that I look up to her. She's directing me right now in My Hero Academia, so the voice that you hear is completely her creation, and it's one of the harder ones I've done. So yeah, I would say her.
The voice actor, my favorite, is in China. I don't think you know her, but I'm so lucky he turned out to be my mentor. So I like it. But because we do a lot of cartoons made by America in China. So when we are doing the voice acting, we like the way American voice actors do. They're so vivid. So voice actors in China are still working on it. Thank you.
I don't know if you guys are from here in Arizona and you guys came in during our nice season, but how do you like the weather here?
Gorgeous.
It's been beautiful. I got to sneak in last night. There was a wedding at the botanical garden, but the security guard knew I was only here for a day, so he let me sneak in to see that big Rosie, the stinky flower.
Did you see it? Did you smell it? Does it smell bad?
I didn't get to smell it. She's not open yet. They thought she'd open last night, but it was just magical, that garden. If you ever get a chance to go to the botanical garden, it's just magical. And I was so lucky to get a peek at her.
I thought it would be. Oh,
Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I had my computer on last night. There's a live webcam. So I was waiting up all night because they thought it was going to be like having a baby. They said it felt like waiting for her to open up, and these giant butterflies were in there. But I had the plant from
Does it really?
Little Shop. kind of a girl version. Yeah.
I thought it would be really hot in here, and I brought a lot of sunscreen with me. But that's cool. That's really comfortable.
Yeah. It gets much worse.
Give it time.
Okay, so we.
In LA, it's still jacket weather for the most part. We have a couple hot days here and there so far, but no, I'm digging this because it's gonna get about to this temperature in LA in about a month's time.
Doesn't actually reach like Arizona temperatures in LA though.
It can.
Can it? Because it gets hot here.
I was
Last year, didn't we reach like literally like 115 or something?
Yeah.
Oh, we've been close to that in LA. Oh yeah, in the valley.
I was shooting
like Forever 75.
my show just had Magic for Amazon last year, and there was a throwback shot where it's in an Old West saloon. So they had me in like a leather hat, 4 layers of clothing, the top being a giant wool overcoat, big black riding boots, and it's really cool looking wardrobe. But we were up at the Paramount Ranch up in the hills outside of town where it gets way hotter. It's more of a desert climate, 117 degrees.
Oh yeah.
During like the dead of September last year, which is when it gets the hottest in LA. And it was so bad that like they had like multiple like additional medics that they don't normally have on set, and they had this giant air conditioning tube like pumping air anytime the cameras were rolling into the set as much as possible. And we still had a couple people have to like take medically ordered breaks because it was so bad, just because of the wardrobe combined with the temperature.
That's dedication, guys. Just letting you know. All right. Do we have another question that anybody?
What's the farthest you traveled for a gig?
I would say maybe New Zealand, I think, was like 22 hours for a Comic-Con. Yeah, I would say that. The farthest for a job would probably be Paris. I did Betty Boop, the voice of Betty Boop for the Lancôme campaign in Paris. And it was interesting because it was the director that directed, he worked on The Artist, the movie The Artist, and it was done this old 20s style, and they had like a real actress, like a French actress playing Betty Boop, and then they animated over her, and then I had to go in and loop over the French. But their looping room, they didn't have beeps, you know, and they had this thing called cursive. Have you guys ever heard of it in the studio? So you're watching the screen and you're at the microphone, and then there's this beautiful handwriting and it's flying by you. What? And I was like, do you have any beeps? And I think I freaked the French out because they're like, beeps, beeps, beeps. And they're like sweating and they're like creating beeps for me. And like, Betty Boop needs beeps. But anyway, it was beautiful. But you can see it online. It's just the Star Eyes campaign, Betty Boop for Lancôme. But that was the farthest for a job, I'd say.
That's awesome. That's the old Fleischer style, like taking a model, filming them, and then animating over them,
Yeah.
exaggerating their movements.
Oh yeah.
That's
So cool.
I went to Australia for a convention, so
Yeah.
about the same. For like a gig, I shot a short film for a week or two in upstate New York called Flight of Passage. That was really fun. We were on an airfield and like flying prop planes, and they had a bunch of like aerial footage with a helicopter with a Red Dragon mount on the bottom, doing all these aerial shots for a 15-minute short film. They had a lot of like favors pulled in to do it on a dime. It was one of the coolest projects I've ever been a part of. They're still trying to get it made into something bigger, but
Cool.
I'm a foreigner here.
Pretty far
America.
away.
Gasp.
America is the farthest, the place I've ever go. I've been to California, Texas, and now Arizona. Yeah, hopefully I'll go to more places in the future. Thank you.
I got to go to London for a con. That was fun. Yeah.
which one?
MCM?
It was. What is that one called? It's like. Coco? I don't know.
There's only like 20 of them in
Name
London.
two.
All the MCMs and then
No, keep going.
Showmasters.
Starts with the K. Yeah, starts with the K. Con or no?
Kikori would be Flagstaff.
No,
We have that
I'm
one.
gonna look it up now.
That's
What is it?
I love London.
I was curious. We're
Komodo.
trying to do some UK stuff. I was talking to some shows. I'm interested.
Does anybody have any K words that they want to throw out
Yeah, I
there?
know. Do you know any cons that start with K? I know it's a
Just Kawaii Con.
KetoCon! It's like KetoCon.
Oh my god!
KetoCon?
KetoCon.
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 Like KetoCon sounds like a diet.
That's a diet con. No, KetoCon.
Yo, are you guys ready for Diet Con?
A KetoCon.
We all eat meat.
It's a Don Con.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Alright. Well then. Anybody else got another question?
So when you're listening to an animated movie show, as professional voice actors, what do you hear? What do you listen for?
Well, the first time I watch a film, I try not to be I try to like be in the story. Like I want stories to take me on the journey. But if I go back and listen to something, I'll just kind of pay attention to the actors. Like not really listen to the voice, but tap into the energy of the actor and what they're feeling and their choices. But most of the time, if I find myself paying attention to production or post-production or voice or the acting, then the story must have lost me somewhere.
If I'm watching a cartoon, I'm instantly keyed into the voice acting. Just for me, I'm not knowledgeable with animation at all. I've learned a ton by being around Rebecca Sugar and her sharing her wealth of knowledge, but I don't really know the first thing about making it or what good animation looks like. So the voice acting is what's familiar, and that's what I key into. For on camera stuff, the acting, it's more of a whole package thing. Like if I'm watching a movie, these days I literally try to visualize the script in my head as a scene is playing. I've been going through and watching a lot of classics lately, really trying to get a feel on the film school stuff that people study, and figuring out, okay, was that beat written in or was that improvised? Trying to visualize how the writers set the scene with the stage directions, how much of the production design was original, how much of it was the writer's intent, and really trying to figure out where their vision was, because I want to be writing scripts eventually for feature films. Yeah.
That bothers me a lot because it's so hard for me to neglect all the things about voice actor. So when and I think that's why I choose subs when I am watching a movie, because I pay money for this movie. I don't want to be working all the time.
That's how I feel. I was just saying yes. I get it.
I literally everything I watch now is a homework assignment. I can't get out of the mindset of watching stuff for fun unless it's with a big group of friends or something. If I'm at home and watching something, it has to be something that's worth studying, I guess, just because I don't know. I spend a lot of time watching weird obscure shows that are like soap operas and stuff. During the day, I just turn on the TV, whatever's on, and it's man, I could totally be using this time to learn some stuff. So I try to analyze stuff pretty heavily nowadays.
I don't want to work when we're watching movies.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's good dedication. Always trying to study and better yourself. But I feel like if it were me personally, I'd be like, no, I am literally just Netflixing.
I totally get it. I get my enjoyment out of it, but I totally see why. It's I'm trying to watch a movie and relax. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and I can totally see his point because, one of my greatest acting teachers he just said, his advice, study people, study the world. That's your homework, and we can accumulate life experience, and I had another casting director too, because I would go out for these commercials and I'm like, what else do I need to do? I said, do I take this class? He goes, go to Hawaii, have a relaxing time, come back and just be you, live life, and study life, because that's what you're bringing to the screen, and you're bringing it in the most authentic way and bringing your essence to it. So I think I commend you for that, because that's staying open, and if you can keep that attitude in life, I'm been in this business a long time, and I'm still learning. So, and I'm learning from young people and people that have been in the business longer than me, and it's all a learning experience. So we keep growing.
If you shut yourself out to that, you're going to find yourself in a bad place after a while.
Yeah.
One more. What's the strangest or most unexpected job or audition you were ever on?
I have a good one. I have two, actually. Okay, so here's another weird thing you might not know about Sandy. So my actor friends were auditioning for game shows. I've never been on a game show. And there's a show called Card Sharks. And I'm like, I'm not really good at poker or cards. They're like, just go, it's easy. So I auditioned for Card Sharks, and I got on Card Sharks, but Card Sharks got canceled. So then, does anybody remember that John McEnroe game show where they were throwing ice at people and putting them on a wheel and spinning them and asking them questions by distracting them? Does anybody remember that game show? Yeah. It's this tormenting, game show. So they go, Sandy, we have a great game show for you. But I didn't know what it was, right? So
You'll love it.
You're perfect for this. And I'm like, what? And so I go and I audition, and they're like, I had to answer the quiz, like name all the Backstreet Boys or whatever. But then I had to go through like these psychological exams, because what if you have a heart attack when you're spinning? And then I had to go through stress tests, and I'm like, what kind of game show is this? Because they don't tell you. And then when they told me I got it, I said, I really don't want to do that. I said, I don't look good in gray. I'm like, I don't want to do that. So then they said, okay, we want to put you on Whammy, Press Your Luck. Okay, so has anybody seen it? No whammies, no whammies, no whammies? Okay, so you show up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and there's maybe 20 episodes of contestants there, times 3 people, right? And so they start briefing you at 5 in the morning. Okay, here's the rules. Okay, I'm a little dyslexic, creative, whatever, so I'm like, okay, what did he just say? They're going over my head, it's early, I'm confused. So I get out there, and I'll just make the story a little shorter, but I run up, and I'm like, hi, I'm Sadie from Pittsburgh. Well, the microphone, the table's here, so they're like, cut, can we get her an apple box? So I end up winning the game show, all the shows. I don't even know how to play really, but I kept going, whammies, more whammies. I won the game show, and then they called me back 3 months later to be in the Tournament of the Champions. So my agent gets a call, 2 years later. So I win Tournament of the Champions, whatever. And I'm second place. So he says, I get this weird call from Disney. They're doing this movie, Bolt, and they want to use your voice. I'm like, oh, that's cool. They want to use your voice when you were on the game show Whammy. I'm like, what? No whammies, no whammies, no whammies. Because I would scream really high, get really excited. No whammies, no whammies, no whammies. So when you watch Bolt, the little hamster is in his trailer clicking through TV channels, and he comes across my voice on no whammies, no whammies, no whammies. So I get paid for this. I've never had to step into a studio, but the odd thing is I want to know where that casting director was, and they're thinking, we need a hamster voice, we need a hamster game show. Oh, let's get Sandy on. So that was the crazy story.
One of those crazy full circle
full circle moments. So yeah, so I'm in the movie Bolt.
Speaking of game shows, my first breakout gig was one of the classroom kids on Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?
Wow.
Wait, what?
Yeah, research. When I was in 5th grade, I was coming out of 5th grade. It was interesting because I had auditioned the previous year, and I was number 7, and they wanted 5 class members, and they were like, oh, do you want to be a temp? And my manager was like, it's probably not a good idea. And this is the first time I come close to any sort of major gig, and I was 11 years old, so I was in so many tears. The next year they changed the requirements. They're like, okay, we want kids coming out of 5th grade, not going into 5th grade now. So I got this freak second chance to audition that had never happened before. And I got it because they were doing a syndicated version where instead of shooting 13 1-hour primetime episodes with a class of 5, it was a class of 3 with 165 half-hour syndicated episodes. So it ended up being a much better gig, and we spent an entire summer shooting. I shot 55 episodes because they did 3 classes. 55 episodes with the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, like a bunch of soap opera stars. There was one guy that he answered a question. It was like a grammatical thing, and they said, "Oh, we're so sorry, you're wrong. You lost all your money." Like, "No, I'm not. I'm calling my lawyer." And literally, like the on-set lawyers and their lawyers were like freaking out on the phone. And I think it was the word "ring." It's like ring the bell in the past tense, and obviously the correct answer was rang, but it said ring. Ring was the answer, and apparently in some like Commonwealth English-speaking countries, ring is correct grammar. So they ended up picking up the episode 2 weeks later in the middle on that, retaping the reaction to her actually getting the question right, and then continuing with the episode. All sorts of weird stuff. We had like earpieces with the producers talking in our ears, like telling us like sit up straight. It was such a quirky gig, but it was great to like get on-set experience shooting like 5 episodes of a game show in one day. Yeah, it was cool.
I had been working on some little project in English, and all the producers are telling me, we don't like the accent, please speak like foreigners, like Americans a little. And Overwatch was the first time when I was in the audition, the producer told me, more Chinese accent, please.
So I did a lot of production for Payless. So, I produced some of their e-commerce videos, and one of the voiceovers that they chose was my least favorite voice that got submitted, and it was so syrupy sweet and just it was like she was selling shoes, but it sounded like she was selling toys, and it always annoyed me. Well, Payless came back, and she could not come back, and they were like, well, we can't get her back out because she lives in New York, so we need somebody to voice match her because we want to keep that voice. And so I ended up having to do this ridiculous voice that would annoy me so much for Payless. So if you go online right now, for payless.com, there's one of those syrupy sweet voices is mine.
Promo and commercials are always weird.
Do you guys have any like of those things yourselves that you're just like, this is one of the weirder promos that I've done?
There was one that they wouldn't tell me what it was for, and I basically had to come in and like voice some sort of digitized system. And the producers were like, we don't even know who the client is. They ordered this through like a shell company. So I basically had to do like different annotations of every number. So one, and then basically say enough stuff so they could get every grammatical sound in English, including some serious like tongue twisters. And I'm not talking like red leather, yellow leather. I'm talking like the 6'6" sheep, 6'6" sheep was sick.
Whoa.
Which I'm only really good at that because I had to practice it the entire day.
I'm sorry, I missed that one. I missed that one.
It's the hardest tongue twister in the world. It's the 6 sick sheiks. 6 sick sheep was sick. It's brutal. So they had.
Elise, would you like to give that a shot?
They had like little 13 or 14-year-old me like torturing me with these endless tongue twisters and like weird like not word grammatical sounds, and afterwards we're like, all right, you're done. Like, what's this for? Like, we can't tell you because we don't know. So I could be the voice of some like educational system and for English students in Japan, or a Russian nuclear submarine. I have no idea.
That's the deactivation code, that tongue twister's like, oh, we're so screwed.
I'm just like touring some military installation at some point, and I say something that vaguely resembles it, and my voice is the one that's the sleeper phrase that activates Armageddon.
Couldn't have chose a better one to just like ruin everyone's day. Like, we need to do this, but I really don't even understand the whole tongue twister.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's nukes, maybe it's leapfrog. I don't know.
Oh gosh.
We'll go with
Military.
leapfrog sounds a lot safer. We'll go with that one.
Military or leapfrog.
6 sheets.
And then the Russian subs are like, oh my gosh, they're trying to say it.
Overlord acquired.
Alright. Well, we have just about enough time for one more question from anybody. Anybody got anything?
Oh, okay. How did you guys get into the field that you're in? Or do you have any like advice for people aspiring to be like in the entertainment field or anything?
It was a horrible accident for me. It was a great accident, actually. I was an on-camera actor first, and a theater actor before that, and taking singing lessons as a kid before that. After doing some on-camera stuff in St. Louis, where I'm from, I had pretty much outgrown the tiny market that is, and we decided to try out California. I got an agent and started, booking commercials and theatrical stuff, and they started sending me out for voiceover just off chance, and I got some really good reactions, and I ended up booking that radio show, Adventures in Odyssey, when I was 11. And off and on that ran for, you like Adventures in Odyssey?
Yeah, man, grew up on that stuff.
Dude, there's always one person in every panel, bro. It's got the most dedicated fan base. It's been on for 30 years now. It's a really great radio drama, and I ended up working on it for 5 years, playing the same character, which is cool. And they've called me back a couple times to play new characters, just because there's rapport there. So that's how I got into it.
Yeah, I started doing, I think, musical theater in high school, and my first show was Godspell, and I was hooked, and I later met Steven Schwartz at a production of Pippin, so that was, and he sent me an email, and because I thanked him for just that show saved my life, but yeah, and I did musical theater. I grew up in Pittsburgh, so it wasn't a big market. I did theme parks. I worked in Kennywood on my summers of high school, auditioned and went down to Orlando, and I worked at Disney, and that was a huge community of people that have been on Broadway and entertainers from all over the country, so I learned so much, and I did commercials. I got my SAG card as a space hooker on a movie called Super Force, which is this
That's something we share in common.
It is. I had razor blades for fingernails, and that's a whole nother story for a panel, but yeah, and I took workshops and classes and sang with a 1920s band and toured, and I just always kept, performing, and that's the key. You have to love it and just keep taking classes and finding opportunities and places to perform.
My favorite thing to ask a bunch of actors is, what was the gig that got you your SAG card? There's always some really interesting, quirky answers, because at that point, you'll take whatever work you can get to get into the union, and mine, to my shame, was a Comcast commercial. I have regrets.
Okay, my mentor gave me a little advice on voice acting. He said, if you want to be a good voice actor, please get in a relationship and broke up and break your heart again and again and again, and that will work.
And that's why I'm so good. Theater. I was in theater, and the director of that theater show, which was Godspell, recommended me to Funimation, and I went and auditioned, and it was awesome. But my advice for anyone who wants to be a voice actor or actor in general is please fall in love with the craft of it, fall in love with creating characters, fall in love with telling stories to where you'll do it on any stage to connect with your fellow actors. Don't do it because you're trying to be famous or trying to make money, or because that will come if it's supposed to, but do it because you need to.
Excellent and sound advice. Thank you very much. But again, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we are in fact out of time. I'm sorry about starting late, but it happens. However, did you guys enjoy yourselves? Yes?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I thought you were asking them.
And of course, audience, did you enjoy that?
No questions, by the way.
Yeah, thank you for
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, but thank you guys for coming. Please enjoy the rest of your con day, and then, of course,
we have a
thank you
signing
very
right
much for
after
coming.
Yeah, we have autographs. autographs?
We'll all be signing, right?
We'll be signing.
Yeah, they of course naturally they will be outside in the main ballroom area doing autograph signings and the like. So please go ahead and come visit them again.